of a female kudu standing in the bush, and like I say, it is the first animal that I have seen all morning. It has been incredibly quiet. I have not even seen an impala this morning, so I suppose I did see the hippo. I did have a hippo, which was okay, but in terms of animals outside of the water, this is the first one. Now, Sense, can you go into the sky? There's a bird that's busy hovering there, so it's just flapping its wings. And are you going to hover for me again? Yes, there we go. See, it's busy hovering. So what are you now? Let's have a look with binoculars, because against a grey sky like that, quite difficult to see what it is. Now, there are harriers that hover and black-shouldered kites, but that is a bit big for a black-shouldered kite, so I'm going to have to look with my binos as to which bird it actually is. Maybe it is a black-shouldered kite. Difficult to see. There we go. Sense, can you get any closer? No. It looks like a black-shouldered kite. Just for a second appeared a bit too small. No, it is bigger than a black-shouldered. You know what I think it might be? Hold on, I need to get my book out for this one just to double check, but you guys can all have a little look while it's kind of flapping its wings. I just want to double check quickly, but typical of harriers and kites, the way that it is sort of stopping like that, and then it holds its position, flaps for a while, looks down, and is busy basically hunting. That's what it's doing when it is like that. So there we go, that's what I thought. Now it looks to me like this fella over here. I will show you what I'm talking about. I don't know if somebody can maybe screenshot it for me at some point and we can just double check it, but it looks like a Montagu's harrier, and the reason why I say it looks like a Montagu's harrier is it seems to have these very black tips to the wings. So you see there's black and black. I didn't see this black line over here though, which is quite indicative. Now the pallid harrier also has that black tipping to the wings, but not the black lines, and that's why I'm wanting to know whether or not somebody maybe screenshotted and could see whether or not there was that black line there. So it's either a pallid or a Montagu's. Very difficult to tell the difference between the two. They both kind of look quite similar, particularly from a view like we just had. Not very easy to see the difference between those, and they are both migratory birds. The black-shouldered kite that I was referring to over here, you see, does not have the dark tip to the wings at all. It's got those little black shoulders, hence the name, and unfortunately I don't think it was that. It was also too big for this bird. Right, well, maybe we'll just try and see if we can get some sort of a screenshot, but while we do that, let's send you back to Taylor and some toothy critters.
So, guess who's back? Who's popped back out of the forest? It's the lioness. We've done a big loop and sadly failed on finding any more forest birds, but at least the lions have decided to pop out, except they are in a very awkward spot. Again, they're very, very far off road, as you can see, and I don't know if they're going to come this way. And sadly, there's a shortage of roads. Well, sadly for us, there's a shortage of roads that go through this grassy section. So getting to them is going to be virtually impossible. But at least you know where they've come out. So we've got somewhere to follow up for this afternoon, which would be quite nice. And it doesn't look like they found a snack in the treed areas either. So maybe a warthog hunt this afternoon then. There's the other one, and I'm sure the fourth lioness is about. Also, I'm so sorry. I think I need to do an apology. You know, sometimes when I go on holiday, I forget everything that has happened at work, and it was four older, for the life of me, can you believe it? I cannot remember. It was 4 older cubs, and then there were 3 new ones. So now the last time I was here, I only saw 6 cubs at all, and I looked everywhere. So sorry, that all 3 of the new little marsh breakaway cubs were around, but I could only see 3 of the older cubs. So I don't know where the 4th older cub has gone. So hopefully this afternoon, if we do come back into this area, the adults would have reunited with the youngsters wherever they've dropped them off, and then we can do a proper count again. Maybe that youngster, you know, they go disappearing for days and days on end. We've seen this a number of different times, and they often come back okay. You know, sometimes they don't listen. So my apologies for any confusion there. I confused myself severely, as you can clearly see. Oh no, sometimes it's tough being blonde. Right, but I think what we will do though is we've got to slowly start heading towards Serena, as I may run out of fuel, and I know Jamie's meeting me there to also do exactly the same thing, so we're still quite far away. So before I run out of fuel, let's start heading in that direction. And what we will do, we'll probably jump on the main river road and see if we can find any birds I believe there's a 2-for-1 Hammerkorp special today, that if you see a pair of Hammerkorps together, a leopard runs past your screen. So I'm hoping for one of those. So we'll try our best along that river road. There's quite a few Hammerkorps we can give it a bash at. Otherwise, it's been a lovely morning. Really nice. I was sad that I didn't see the Scallows Turacos though. I was really hoping to get them on camera. Of course, now I'm looking straight at the sun. Typical. But next time, we'll have to try next time. And then, well, keep thinking of birds that we could potentially see in the forest. Maybe some that Brent has mentioned, and we can try and add to our list. And what I will do is, while the car is being filled up at Serena, I will make an attempt to start going through my bird list and ticking off all the ones I've seen. I've got my big Africa bird book now, and it's a new one though, so it's not the same one that I had from Zambia. I actually gave that to one of the guides down there, one of the river guides. So I have another one. Nikki, I'm very sorry, but all my comms broke up again. There we go. Something's going on in this car. I don't know. I just have gremlins following me around all the time. Okay, so we're going to keep looking for Hammerkorps and ticking off birds in my bird book. Jamie has found some cats.
No, Taylor, not another car. It'll be the third one this week. We definitely don't want that to happen. Anyway, we have found some cats, and I'm actually having quite a nice morning, you know. Lions, buffalo, surprise leopard that literally could not have run further into the middle of our shot if it had tried, and now a pair of beautiful big male lions. We've seen these males before, but as to who they are and where they belong in this whole situation, I couldn't begin to tell you. They sit right on the boundary of the territory of the Musketeers, so Scarface and the other 3 members of that coalition, and they're dominant over the Sausage Tree Pride, and that is pretty much all I can tell you about them. I've seen them a few times. He's beautiful, isn't he? Yeah, looks like something out of some kind of hair conditioner advert. Mane blowing gently in the wind. Absolutely lovely. And some elephants in the background, just for good measure. So a lovely opportunity to take some nice screenshots. Hashtag Safari Live is how you can get hold of us. Oh yes, there you go. Okay, we've all missed something. There's a hyena behind the lion. There, right in the middle of your frame now. There is a hyena there. Keep going, up a little bit, up a little bit. There it is, walking through the grass. There is a hyena. Well done, Nikki. Nikki spotted a hyena. And Nikki once found us a hyena den by watching where our camera was pointing, because neither VM nor myself had noticed that there were a group of hyena cubs gathered next to us. We were busy trying to get back for a fireside chat. It's not often the directors catch us out, but Nikki, you caught us out. We all missed that. Male lion, not bothered in the slightest. He's old enough now that the joy of chasing hyenas has long since left him. It's really not worth the effort for him. Big yawn. Chris, you say you wanted this job. You know, funnily enough, we were just talking about this, Chris. I can understand completely why one would want this job. We are very fortunate to do what it is that we do. We're very happy to be able to share what it is that we're passionate about with all of you. That's half the fun anyway. Half of our joy comes from being able to share this with other people. It's not the same when you're experiencing it on your own. And the Ellies are coming, slowly realizing that there's a lion there. Chances are, what I've noticed in the Mara, is that they're just going to let it be and walk past him. But you never know, they might chase him. There we go, Vespa's talking about the hyena and suggesting that it is a brave hyena. I think he was actually quite a bit further away from the lion than we realized. I find that generally when it comes to animals behind or in front of each other, the the depth perception is difficult to gauge how close things are to each other. They also look further away when one sees them to the left and to the right of each other. So right now those elephants are very close to that lion. And you can see the trunk's up, they've smelt him, they're aware of him. And now the question is, what are they going to do about it? Most of the time I've found in the Mara, the elephants don't bother too much with chasing lions unless they're right in their direct line. Get it? Lion? Haha. No, right in the direct line that they're walking in. And there's a good chance. Not even a head swish. How cool is that? But that's what I was trying to say about gauging the depth and the distance between the different animals. Oh, that is an amazing shot. Definitely a good screenshot opportunity there. That looks like somebody photoshopped the lion in front of the elephant. One of those awful, awful posters with all of the animals all combined together in sort of different proportions, and it's all wrong. In this case, it's real. And in fact, we might still have an entire herd that's going to walk along behind the lions. Oh, there are two, by the way. I completely missed the second one. It was pointed out to me by Steve. I'll show you where he is in a little bit once the Ellies have passed. I don't want to miss a moment in case that lion moves wrong and the elephant decides to chase it. A nice comparison here. So she passed probably, if I'm trying to, if I'm looking with my own eyes as opposed to the eyes of the camera, I would say she probably passed within about 15 or so yards, maybe a bit less. Gillian says it doesn't even look real. Well, we once had a viewer who accused us of using green screens, which I confess was truly an astounding accusation, as I'm not sure how on earth we would have managed that given where we work and the amount of green. But we were accused of using green screens. This of course is actually a cardboard cutout of a lion with a movable head, and I've got strings attached to the top of it so I can lift it and lower it like a puppet. And you know all those tracks we talk about on bushwalk? We actually go out overnight and we stamp them into the ground just so that we've got something to do the next morning. I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. It doesn't look real. It looks like a scene out of some kind of film. It's incredible. Do you remember the viewer that thought they'd caught us out because it had been dark when we started and light when we finished? Because they forgot how mornings work. That was also very funny. It was also somebody just looking for attention, but it was hilarious. Look at the tusks on that female. She wanders behind him. He could not be less concerned. Oh no, hold on. Just looking up just to make sure he's not going to get taken by surprise by an angry elephant. It pays to pay a bit of attention. I'm sure it's the open spaces that make them more comfortable with lions. What was that? Just stay there, sorry, Adrian. There's something that moved in the grass between the elephants. I thought I saw something and now I can't. There's that the hyena again. I just see something now. The elephant's going to walk in front of it. That must be the hyena again. So while we wait for the elephant to move so we can figure out what it was, Hassan wants to know, is a lion with a full belly no threat to anyone? No, that is absolutely not the case. Yes, a full lion is less likely to be active and less likely to exert too much energy, but if the hunting opportunity presents itself, they're predators by nature and they're opportunistic, so they will take the opportunity to hunt if it presents itself while they are full. And during the migration, and Aaron, by the way, if you're watching, I really appreciated the Another One Bites the Dust as the soundtrack for the wildebeest during the migration. It was very funny. in the migration, you see lions with full bellies hunting, actively hunting. And there we go. It is the hyena. He wants to see what this is all about. We often see them hunting, not even eating, once they've killed the animals. As for threats to people, yes, a hungry, injured lion is more of a threat to human life than a full, healthy one, because they want to avoid us at all costs. Well, of course, the only way you'd really be threatened by a lion would be to be on foot with one. Let's go and rejoin Steph, who I'm sure is not too concerned about being chased by any lions.
Not too concerned at all, to be honest with you. It'd be quite nice to see a lion. That was you having a look at over there. You were having a look at our favorite tree. That is the largest leadwood tree that occurs on Djuma. It is unfortunately dead and has been so for quite some time. I don't really know how long it's been dead for, but it's been dead for a while. And will continue to stand for a while, probably long after I've passed on from this world. There will be some remnants of that tree left over. But that's not why we stopped here. We actually stopped here because Viam managed to find, I think it was Herbie that then gave it to Viam, who gave it to me. Have a look at this bizarre collection of eggs. So this is from, I think, a moth or a butterfly. And have a look at how the eggs have been laid in these whorls and funny patterns, this globular pattern on the stick. I actually think that it was probably lying flat or against something, and the moth then exuded the eggs out in this pattern, this funny pattern, and it just so happened that whatever it was leaning against at that stage then fell away and left us with this very beautiful hollow thing. And what you can see is inside there, you can see how the young caterpillars have hatched from the inside and not on the outside. Must have been quite bizarre for a young caterpillar expecting to come out the top of an egg, now to come out with all his mates in a chamber. I was thinking he's born in some exhibit somewhere. Shame. Anyway, we're going to see if we can get this back and give it to James for his museum collection, and see what he can do with his hand microscope when he finally gets this thing under there. Now, as you can see from the weather, our prediction about it clouding up has come true. There's been a lot of cloud cover coming over. In actual fact, we can't see the sun anymore, and it's cooled down considerably and gone quite dark. But the sad thing is that there just doesn't seem to be enough moisture in there. So although the pressure was dipping and the sun gave us the beautiful blood red sun and said, brace yourselves, I don't think that there's enough moisture in this atmosphere. You might find our rain comes from that direction there, and it does look slightly thicker, the cloud cover in that direction. And hopefully by this afternoon the wind picks up, the cloud cover drops and thickens up, and we get some rain. We need some. Ian, you said you've seen pearl brooches that don't look this cool. It is quite an amazing structure, isn't it? And if you can see there, you can see that it's made up in different layers, at least 2 different layers. So it came out in these cones. And just amazing that that amount of eggs was produced in a moth, which basically just lives on nectar. Crazy, huh? I don't know what moth it is. Looks like a moth. I'm assuming it's a moth and not a butterfly. Moths tend to lay these globular clusters of eggs rather than the butterflies, although I don't know enough at all about it. In actual fact, one of the reasons why my backpack was half off was because I thought I had been carrying around my insect track and science book, and in there's a bunch of photographs of this, and I'm going to go and have a look at it when I get home. But I don't have it in my bag. For some reason I've taken it out and left it behind, which is sad. I would have liked to have worked through it with you. All right, we're going to make our way through this thick bush over here. We're not looking for Tundi anymore, to be honest with you. The tracks and the area of her last tracks was completely unproductive, which means that we need to swap our area completely. So either we need to find a fresh track of her, hear something, or we need to move into a different area. But she definitely doesn't seem like she's around here. It could change, obviously, through the day. A nice cool day like this, leopard move all the time. So hold hands that by this afternoon she pops back up. But in the meantime, why don't we go and see what James has been keeping himself busy with.
One does find that with Stefan Winterboer, one never feels like he's being dishonest, and that's mainly because he always tells you he's being honest. He says, to be honest with you, I don't think that this is a good place to be. To be honest with you, I think that this is probably a butterfly's egg casing. Fascinating stuff. Good. And I'm sorry that he has honestly told you that there are no leopard around where he is. I can honestly tell you exactly the same thing. I don't think there are any leopard around where I am either. Anyway, we're heading towards Treehouse Dam now to see if we can't find something there. Maybe a bird or two. Sebastian looked like he was going to point at something. Some elephants, well spotted. I think we'll leave Ronald on the car though for this sighting, don't you? Nice big herd of elephants disappearing into the woodland. Not sure how much of a view we're going to get, but let's see. How's that, Seb? Oh, beautiful shot there. 2 out of 5, yes. Also going for the marulas, as you can see. I'm not going to follow them into that thick stuff. They look like they're on a mission to get somewhere, and we have had some very good elephant action today. Paul, you want to know if people make wine from marula fruit? No, they make what they call marula beer. It's not beer in the way that I understand beer, but basically it's just a fermented fruit. So I suppose you could call it wine if you like. It only takes about 5 days to make. So it's not a question of leaving it in the bottle for years and years to mature into a fine vintage. And basically what you do is you take the fruits, peel them, squeeze them off into a bucket or so, put a little bit of water on top, a couple of sprinklings of sugar, and then you leave it for 5 days, sometimes in the sun if you want it quickly, or you can put it in a fridge for a bit longer than that, maybe about a week or so, and then it's supposed to taste very good. If it's cold and it's not too kind of, shall we say, one hesitates to use the term rotting, but somewhere between fermenting and rotting, it can taste quite nice, but if you leave it for too long, then it really can be vile stuff. But all around here, people drink it in great volume around this time of the year, to the extent that if you were to go into one of the rural areas out here at this time of year, or further north of here around Christmas time, well, it was very, very difficult to find anybody who was able to move in a manner that would make them productive members of society. It's rather amusing. Now, Rachel, you're talking about the delicious cream liqueur called Amarula Cream. They do put Amarula in it, and in fact the factory is not too far from here. It's up near Palaboa, where the trees tend to fruit actually a bit earlier than they do here, around December time. And it doesn't taste anything like Amarula actually. I find that Amarula cream and most of those creams just taste like sort of cream with sugar and brandy mixed into them. There's a little bit, I suppose, of a slight essence, if you like, of Amarula in the cream, but it really doesn't taste like the fruit at all. Let's have a look here at this pea green arrangement in Treehouse Waterhole. One almost expects to find a ham bone floating around there, as one might put in the post-Christmas pea soup that my mother insists on making every year. It's always an indication that the holiday's coming to an end. I mercifully escaped it this year. Nicola says it looks like drizzle almost. It does, doesn't it? Nicola is directing this show today, by the way, so any complaints you can send to her. It isn't drizzle, it's something going on beneath the surface of the water. Isn't that interesting? It does look like it's raining, but it isn't. That is very amazing. A couple of angry calls from some magpie shrikes around. But otherwise all is quiet here at Djuma. No lions today, everybody. Horsana is on Litligari. That is a reserve next to that big dam that we were at called Chitwa Dam. We can't go there, unfortunately. He can. He has traversing rights over the whole of the Sabi Sands and, in fact, the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, should he choose to use those traversing rights. It's true, he does. No lions today. So it's not only us that are having a slightly quiet morning. It's everybody. Seabud, you are wondering if the genus fever trees, is that correct, occurs in South Africa? C-E-I-B-A, if the Seba genus of trees occurs in South Africa. I certainly haven't heard of it, I'm afraid. I couldn't tell you, not around here. There are over 1,000 species of trees in South Africa though, so it's entirely possible that the genus Seba does occur, but that I am just too clueless to know about it. Ooh, this is interesting. This red-billed buffalo weaver's nest up here was unoccupied the other day when Herbert and I came past, and it now seems to have been reoccupied or reconstituted as a home. I'm just listening to an update on the radio. Tamba is inside Simbambili now, coming south. We'll see if we can get there quickly, actually. We might be able to get a quick view. The Seba tree apparently is in West Africa, not found in South Africa. We're going to drive quite quickly now and see if we don't get lucky with a view of Thamba on the boundary. Quite quickly. We can't drive too quickly with Marvin sitting next to me. So while we do that, let us go across to Tristan, who I believe has found some more sand and some more grass.
Indeed, James, but we did have a glimmer of hope, because up here somewhere an impala was alarm calling, and the tracks for those lions are all over the place here. They're in and out of this drainage and around all over the place. And so when the impala started to shout, I thought maybe it was because of Herbie and Steph being in the area, but it wasn't. And so I think they might have seen these lions, but I can't hear them anymore. They've gone quiet. So now I've got to try and kind of piece together exactly where they could have been. I think they might have been a little south of where we are, so we're going to just do a little loop round and just see what we can find. But there definitely is tracks for them all over the place here. So hopefully we'll get a little bit of luck and they will be lying somewhere where we can actually see them. And we also have to make sure that Senzo's got his best eyes on so that he can spot what's going on. And I hope that James finds Tumba too, because, well, it's been a long time since we've seen that little cat, and it will be great to have him around again. I believe he's on Triple M, which is way away from where he's ever been before, so he's definitely branching out a little bit and going into new areas and new places, which I suppose is fairly common for a young male. Let's see, I just want to quickly check this game path up ahead here, because this is a path that gets walked a lot by the lions, and so I just want to double check that they haven't been walking on here and going back to the north before I turn southwards again. Right, let's just have a look here quickly. No, so no tracks going to the north, which is good news. I'm sure they have maybe gone southwards. So I'm going to try and see what I can do. And while I check around at these tracks, let's go across to Stefan Winterberg, who's not got a leopard, but something very close to it.
Yeah, definitely. This is about as close to a leopard as what we're going to be getting today. This is the dead remains of a leopard tortoise, and a fairly large leopard tortoise at that. And we noticed it lying in the bush because it was lying on its side facing us like this. And when we got close by, we actually saw that it's, you know, its skin, there's still a little bit of a skin left inside there. This would have been the tail end of the tortoise. The back end, this would have been the base. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called the plectron. It's the breastbone and the front part of the pelvis of the tortoise. This looks like a male tortoise because it's nice and flat. It doesn't have a nice hollow, a female tortoise. It's nice and flat. It doesn't have a hollow concave in as male tortoises do. And it's also fairly large. The female tortoises are larger. This would have been the front of the tortoise. And inside there, deep inside, you might just be able to get a view of some of the leftover bones and remains inside there. It's not too stinky, which is a good thing at the moment, but it has been here for a while. You can see these scutes. These are the scales on top of the tortoise shell, for lack of a better word, are coming off, and that happens when the bone dries out significantly and leaves these scutes to come off. This is essentially the skin and the what's left over of the meat of the tortoise, as the bones of the tortoise have come to the outside of the body, very similar to an insect's exoskeleton. And this is about as close as, outside of the insect world as we get to an exoskeleton, with all the internal organs lying on the other side of this bone. These bones would have been made of the pelvis, the shoulder blades, the collarbone, the breastbone, and the ribs of the tortoise, and is an ancient design. Many hundreds of millions of years ago, the tortoises came across this design, and not much has changed since then. Very effective. Very effective. One thing that I have noticed that I've never ever seen before, and it's because it's pulling apart. You can see on the joins there that it's pulled apart, and it's starting to come loose. These eventually will break off into these bony plates, and that will be the only thing that's left over of this particular tortoise once it's done and dusted. Now, Joel, you wanted to know if the shell could be repurposed. It's funny you said that, because the second that I saw the shell, VM immediately said perhaps we can repurpose the shell as a covering for Ronald the Rover, and cut off the bottom and then put him over the camera, and perhaps elephants will leave him alone. But I suppose as decoration, you could use them as a type of pot. I suppose if it was a bit fresher, you could hollow it out and cook in it if you wanted to, boil some water in it, store water in it. It would make quite a handy storage device for something. Not much else. I mean, maybe a chair. A little bit low for a chair, but I suppose you could use it as a bit of a chair. But now, it does give us a chance to take a couple of seconds just to talk about these. So one of our viewers, Debbie, just got back to us now and said that she's been raising moths and caterpillars and butterflies for a very long time, and that this definitely looks like moth eggs. So thank you very much for that, Debbie. And then I'm just going to ask Nikki to repeat the genus of the moth that Debbie thinks it is. It's quite difficult to remember for my weak-minded memory at the moment. So, Cecropia, C-E-C-R-O-P-I-A. C-E-C-R-O-P-I-A is the genus that Debbie thinks that this is from. She says that she's seen these lovely bulbous sort of egg deposits before amongst hers. Now, I don't know enough about moths, especially at that type of detail. I don't know enough about moths out here to confirm whether we even find that genus in South Africa. But Debbie, I just want to say thank you very much for giving us your feedback and helping us understand a little bit more about this wonderful egg deposit. Now, we're on our way through the bush here. We're following this drainage line up towards Central Road, and the reason for that is there's some impala that we're just busy giving an alarm call about 5 or 10 minutes ago, just before we found this tortoise shell. Herbie has moved off in that direction. For those of you who don't know who Herbie is the security detail for VM and I. While we're busy concentrating on all the small things, Herbie is looking after this. He is now looking and scouring the bushes in front of us over here, and hopefully we can find something exciting before the end of the drive. So don't go anywhere while we go and have a look for that. You're off to James to see what he's been up to.
Well, I hope Steph was being honest with you there again. I'm sure he was. We've excuse me, heading up our new road, Mandoza Road, and then we are going to go on to the boundary between Djuma and Arathusa and Simbambalai, and with any luck we'll be lucky to find Tumba coming this way. Tumba, for those of you who don't know, a young male leopard born in July 2 years ago, July 2016, and so he's coming up, I suppose you could say he's coming up on his second birthday. This is still some time away. And those two reserves I mentioned, two to the east of us, west of us, that we are not allowed to go to. But Tumba, much like Horsano, who I mentioned earlier, has full traversing rights over the entire area. I do think also that we should, to complete the trifecta, use the microscope at some stage today. So I think I'll try and find something fun to use for that too. So that's my plan for the next little while. I have to drive quite carefully with Marvin on the car. Ah, now, very excitingly, of course, we do know that we are having our TV show from the 4th to the 9th. That's your time, 5th to the 9th, our time. That's it. Yes, 5th to the 9th, so it's 4th to the 8th, your time in the US, on Nat Geo Wild, 10 o'clock Eastern time. The first one, of course, will be after that sort of sport thing that you have going on in the United States, where they fling about a small rugby ball dressed in armour. I forget what it's called. Mainly I'm not allowed, because I'm not allowed to say what it's called, in case I get sued. That is not a joke. Right. Most importantly, though, during the course of this 5-day TV spectacular that is going to take place at 10 p.m. on Eastern Time, Nat Geo Wild, is Safari Bingo. Now, Safari Bingo could, well, it could net you and your best pal a trip to Kenya or South Africa, courtesy of National Geographic Journeys. And in order to win, you have to live in the United States and B, go to natgeo.com/Safari Live, download the app and read all the rules, and you could find yourself in one of these rather iconic locations at the end of the TV show. I will announce the winner, yes, I will, on the last show, probably about half an hour before the end. But in order to play, you must watch all the shows to get all the tiles and words and images of Safari Bingo. So go to natgeo.com/Safari Live and read about how you too could travel to Kenya or South Africa with your best pal in the world for a once-in-a-lifetime safari. I could. That's actually, I've just figured that out. Project Alpha, you say, couldn't I say superb owl? Yes, I could say superb owl. That is very clever, Project Alpha. How fantastic. I think I will do that, in fact. Yes. Yes, that, you know that, that sporting event that you have there, that has all the same letters as superb owl, but is pronounced slightly differently. Project Alpha, you've made my day. Thank you very much. While we do that, let us go across to Tristan Dix, who has never played the game Superb Owl before.
Well, I have no idea what was being said, Nikki, because you were laughing too much. But as you can see, we have found the Nkuhuma Pride, which is a success. So they are all in the most impenetrable thicket that one could ever imagine. So that is where they are lying. No wonder they were difficult to spot. It's all the young ones are here as far as I can see. I haven't seen the little cub yet, and I've seen at least 2 adults that are here. So they look as though they are slowly starting to move down into the drainage line again, which is a bit of a pain because I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to get down there from this side. Might have to do the long trek all the way back from where we originally started when you were last with me before we found these guys. So we'll just have to see what they do. I'm going to try and just reposition to see if we can get a better view of them, because as you can see, it's not exactly open and clear and as nice as one would hope for. Just careful there, Sins. So he's going to back through a rather bush. Make sure we don't hit ourselves in the face. There we go. So we're through that. Now, where am I going to go to get towards where they are? So they're all lying there nicely. I'm just trying to work out a way to actually get in there. I think this is going to be a bit tight. Sens, maybe you might have to shift onto your right-hand side there. We're going to try and sneak our way through here. Although, if we go maybe just a little bit forward, then Senzo should have a nice view. There's the little one. The little one is also here as well. So there, Sens, can you get them on the right-hand side? So they're all lying just through that gap. Well, at least some of them are. And they're kind of all looking down into the drainage. Like I say, one of the females got up and walked that way and sort of looked as though she was going to go down. But it seems as though the rest of them are still very stationary here. You can see a little one fast asleep, not really worried about what's going on at the moment, taking it very easy. And then some of its older siblings, who, can you believe, are almost, well, approaching 2 years old now. It's pretty incredible to think how big they've gotten, and it has been a long time since I've seen them, and these sub-adults are starting to look very big and very impressive. The thing is, though, is that they're all a little bit skinny. They do need a bit of food. The Nkuhuma Pride is typical for summer lions in the Sabi sands. They are having a tough time of it trying to find food, and we've been discussing drought and all of these things this morning, James and Steph, and that's part of the reason why the Nkuhumas are struggling a little bit, is because there's not a lot of buffalo around, and because of the number of mouths that need to be fed and how much food needs to be provided, they really are struggling to find that on a consistent basis. So they do find buffalo here and there, and they manage to bring those down, and between that, they supplementing their diets with impalas and kudu and zebras and wildebeest and those kind of things. But it's hard to come by out here. There's not really much happening in terms of big game animals that lions can hunt, and so the Nkuhumas are probably struggling a little bit to find the food that is necessary. Interestingly enough, though, they're in an area that they've kind of been around for the last 3 days. There's been very little sign of movement outside of this kind of section. They've been back and forth from here, and this is an area where they've denned before. So I wonder if maybe it's just a sort of safe zone, and they know that this is their go-to place should they really be in a kind of desperate situation and looking for food. It's just an interesting kind of take on things, because generally lions, and particularly the Nkuhuma Pride, travel quite big distances when they are hunting and looking for food. And so I'm surprised that they've been staying around this drainage line as much as they have. Maybe there's something going on. I hesitate to say it, but I don't know if there's any of the females that have been mating. Maybe there's a female that's scoping out possible den sites. Who knows? It's so long since I've seen the Nkuhuma Pride. I don't even know who's been mating with who, if there's females that are pregnant or not. It'll just be interesting to know whether or not that has taken place. Now, as I look through these thickets, I can just kind of see tawny coats spread out all the way through between them, so between these kind of areas, and so it looks like most of them are here. I just can't see how many adults at this stage. It definitely looks like all 6 of the sub-adults and the young one is here, and 2 females that I saw initially that went down towards the drainage itself. Tweety Kid, you're wondering if moisture from kills keeps lions going through droughts. Yes, they will acquire a lot of their moisture from the blood of an animal when feeding, so they don't necessarily have to go and drink water. As long as they're making kills and getting blood from them, then there's a moisture content within that blood and meat that they're able to survive off. But they ultimately do need water as well. It's not just going to be enough, particularly in big prides like this. If they're sharing small meals like an impala, there's not really going to be enough water in the excessive heat that we get in the summer, so they have to then find water. Could also be why they're sticking around here at the moment. It's so dry at the moment that there's really not very much water in the small puddles and pans, and so they're just hanging around where they know they can get water, which is at the lodge itself. There's Galago pan, and then that little nest cam pan that has water and is pumped daily, and so generally, they know that they can get clean water there, and so maybe that's why they're sticking around in this area. interesting though. Like I say, it's generally you find lions move a lot more than this, but they've been far more static than I would have thought. Not that we're complaining. It's great to have the Nkuhuma Pride back. I love having them around. They're such an incredibly beautiful pride. Jem, you're wondering if animals get scared of thunder the same way that some pets do. Well, so little cubs like that little one there, in the first few times they hear thunder and lightning, most definitely they're going to be fairly nervous and probably cower a little bit when there's a crack of lightning. But they get quite used to it. After a while, it's part and parcel of their everyday life. It's, they can't really go and hide under a bed or go and kind of get into a closet somewhere. They've got to just deal with it. And so they start to get used to it and get used to the fact that there is lightning and thunder around, and that's how it kind of goes. So it's one of those things, and I suppose if you're an animal and you deal with it a lot, then that's how it goes. Hello, beautiful. You guys are getting very big. All of you. They're such a beautiful pride as well. I like the way that they look, their faces and everything all kind of look very good. So it's always a pleasure to be in sort of amongst the Nkuhuma Pride and just see them again after such a long period of time away, that it's always good just to catch up. Now that looks like one of the adult females. Difficult to say. It's so obscured from where I am. All I've got is just a picture of her face, but it looks like maybe the spotty-nosed female that's there. I can't see nicely. No, it's not. Tired now. So it does look like they may have had a little meal, though. If you look at that belly, it's not exactly thin. There's a little slight bulge in it. Maybe an impala between all of them. Seems like it might be. Even the little cub also had a slight bulge on its belly. Of course, it's still suckling, so it'll get some milk, but there's a little bulge there, isn't there? And it almost looks as though maybe they shared something small like an impala between them. They definitely could do with more, though. I'm sure a buffalo would go down an absolute treat with them. There's one that's just gotten up and moved. Where did it go? There it comes. So it's going to lie down underneath the bush as well. I don't see the young male anywhere just yet. I was always root for him. Unfortunately for the Nkuhuma Pride, they often have this situation where they have one male, or and he has to kind of fend for himself. And we know that the last male that was with them, which was called Junior, he's doing very well. He seemed to have partnered up with another male, and they hang around north of us in the Orpin area. So that's a part of the Kruger National Park that just sits north of the Manyeleti and the Sabi Sands, and he seems to be doing just fine in that particular section, which is great news. It's always nice when you get to see the young ones making it, and particularly a lone male like that, for him to have found a partner and to have established himself is really a very, very cool thing, because it's tough world out there, lots and lots of coalitions around, and so being a lone male is never the easiest, that's for sure. But I think this is going to be a typical situation where they're going to probably spend most of their day here. They tend to not move around too much, lions. Once it gets sort of sun's up, then they tend to lie down. And they've walked quite a bit. I mean, they've gone into Buffelshoek and they've come back and back into Buffelshoek and back again, and then walked all over the place here. So maybe they've had a long night and it's time just to have a really good nap and take it very easy. The feet and head and tails all kind of stacked up. So, Michael, most definitely, if the demand for food is more than the supply, they will split. They will have a situation where they'll have to split, unfortunately. It's not because they want to, it's just that if they can't find enough food, then you're going to find that others are females that potentially don't have cubs. So let's say somebody like Amber Eyes, she might take the young female with her small cub, and they move off and they try and go find their own food. It happens a lot in much bigger prides than this. So if you go into parts of the Kruger, particularly into the eastern side, onto a concession, the Singita concession called Lubavo, there they had a number of prides that got massive. It's well over 30 individuals, 35 individuals, and those prides all have to split eventually because they just can't sustain the amount of food that they need. And so hunting something like a buffalo every single night or a giraffe every single night is really not sustainable, and so they then split into smaller groupings, and that's how they'll sort of find the food that they need, particularly in times when there's not much around. If you have animals everywhere and you have a situation where there's herds of buffalo all the time, then the prides can grow to 30, 40 strong and sustain that. But as soon as it gets into a sort of period where they're struggling to find food, you will often see split-ups of the various females. What interests me, though, is that in the sort of splits that we've been seeing and what we've been seeing over the last 3 days is we've had 3 females that are the mothers of these cubs that have been off on their own and kind of doing their own thing, with the youngest female staying behind with the cubs. Right, well, we're going to sit with our Nkuhumas because we spent the whole morning looking for them. We might as well enjoy them for a little bit longer. I know it's not the best view, but you never know what can happen. And while we do that, let's send you back across to Ms. Patterson in the Masai Mara.
What would a day be without? Well, we've had lions both in South Africa and the Mara, and now we have to complete our morning with the call of a black-bellied bustard. So what we're going to do is we're going to sit quietly as he calls, and we'll see if you can hear it, because it is one of the most special calls out here in the various bird calls. That was a pathetic sentence, but you know what I mean. No, the males calling like this, obviously to announce their presence, to intimidate other males potentially, and at the same time attract a female. It's not so easy to find a female out here. And grass is long and they don't have the same bright colouring that the male does. They're just as subtle as the back of the male. So he's got to. Doesn't matter how many times you listen to it, does it? Meg, who is in final control up in the Mara, it is of course her favourite bird call. Yep, there we go. Meg's is on it. She is emphasising once again that it is her favourite call. There are those of us who are natural-born mimics, and there are those of us who are not. I fall into the not category. I have attempted many times to imitate the call of the black-bellied bustard, and I think you'll all agree it's appalling. There's no other way to phrase it. Herbie, on the other hand, actually Steve doesn't do such a bad bustard impression. Here we go. It's the champagne cork pop at the end. Although I think it sounds more like a bubble. Big bubble surfacing. I might not be able to imitate the black-bellied bustard call, but of course the call that we all start out imitating is the call of the spotted hyena.
And I still can't do it very well, funny enough. It's harder than you think. Fat, fat, fat. I don't know what they've eaten. It must have been quite a large meal, though, to feed all of these hyenas. There is again a female that's been collared, which is quite interesting. Oh, hang on. What are they dragging? Maybe we're going to see what they're feeding on. Oh, I didn't see that. That was tucked away in the grass. That looks like a bit of hide. Can you flap it around a little bit more, please, hyena, so we can see what you've got? Is that a hippo hide? Looks like it, doesn't it? Looks like a piece of hippo hide. So, I wonder what's gone on here. I wonder if it's maybe a hippo that's just died, or perhaps it was a young hippo. Did the hyenas kill it? Very interesting. Now, I don't know how tasty that bit would be, but hyenas are lucky enough to be able to digest a variety of things. These ones are on the move now. So they've obviously been feasting right through the night and into the early hours of the morning. Now that it's warming up and their bellies are full, I'm sure they're going to find a nice spot to rest in. Perhaps they were wrestling in the mud too, because they are dirty. Not that hyenas are the cleanest creatures. They don't smell very nice. They could also be from the carcass if they were all fighting over it. They could be from them too. I wonder where this clan hyena lives. I mean, we often hear, when you're out at night, you hear them calling quite a bit. But I don't know if I know this clan. We're near Serena, so perhaps all of you know this clan. Maybe it's just part of a bigger clan. A youngster. Looks like a youngster. Oh, look how disgusting they look. You guys need to go for a swim in the Mara River, I think, to go and get cleaned up. Maybe that's where they're going, because they are heading in the direction of the river. And hyenas love to sit in water, typically more mud, though, than anything. And keep themselves nice and cool. You're being quite cheeky, aren't you? The reason why I say it's still a youngster, because look at all that white fluff that it has on its body. And you can see the size difference, so it's quite big there. And you just look a little bit out of proportion still. I really wonder what happened. It would have been so interesting to know. I can't see any bones or anything. I'm just looking back to see if I can see any more of that carcass. But we know hyenas drag carcasses around quite a bit, and we saw them when the Triangle Boys had killed that big hippo. And we saw them picking up the bones of that hippo and running away, obviously grabbing scraps when they could, and then taking them to a spot where they could feed on them in peace and quiet. So that's also what could have happened here, is that maybe this isn't where the actual carcass was. It's just one has got one last lucky piece. Now, Rachel, you said you never noticed that the hyena's front legs are longer than the back legs. It's a funny thing to see with hyenas, because they really do look out of proportion. And I suppose it helps them, though, having a bigger upper body. And we see this with things like topi, with wildebeest, animals that can run for a long time and over a long distance too. I suppose it helps them when they get into a canter, that sort of rocking horse motion, without having to constantly keep pushing off the ground and using energy and the momentum, I suppose, of their body that's not quite in proportion will help keep them going. Look at that, just chewing on that. That can't be tasty. Now that hippo hide will be very, very thick too. And the one looks like it wants to come in and get a little bit. Tina, now you said you didn't realize that a hyena could kill a hippo. Well, it would take a lot of hyena to bring down an adult hippo, so they probably wouldn't be going for an adult. The hippo's just given birth. And often that's how hippos can lose ears, is because of hyenas pestering, or any animals even using a tail. You know, that could be a cause of some of the elephants losing their tails. Down on the ground, you know, mom has just given birth, is vulnerable, clan of hyenas come in. So it could have also just been that that hippo died on the banks of the river, maybe from a fight, a territorial fight with bulls, and they have just, well, they pretty much just dragged it around. We're not far from the Mara River, so I'm not really sure. I mean, that's only a small section of the hide, so who knows what could have happened. But from the Mara team, I'm going to say a goodbye to all of you, and we'll see you on the Sunset Safari. And I hope you enjoyed it. It's been a fun day. I'll send you down to sunny South Africa with Tristan, who's going to spend the last couple of minutes with you.
You are indeed, Taylor, and hopefully the Mara team are going to have a nice Sunday as well. Now, our bride is slowly but surely, one by one, just falling over. Heads are popping down, and it's really time for a nap. There's only one left that has got its head up. Everybody else is flopped down onto their sides, and so I think it's going to be time to have a good rest and a good sleep for the day, and I'm sure this afternoon they'll be up and moving again a little bit later. But nice to catch up with them. It's been a long time since I've seen them, and it's always so much better when you've had to work hard to find them and track them. So absolutely nice to kind of be out and tracking, and especially to follow tracks and then be successful in the end. So thoroughly enjoyable morning, really. It was quiet to start, but a bit of perseverance and everything came together at the end. Now remember, we are leading up towards our TV shows. So TV shows will be on from the 4th to the 8th of February at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so don't forget to tune into those. And it's also a great chance to play Safari Bingo, as James has mentioned, and various others as well, that you can play Safari Bingo. So remember, natgeo.com/Safari Live for rules and how to get involved with that, and win yourself a trip to maybe come and see some lions of your own in real life. But it's getting to that time, unfortunately, where we are going to start heading home. I think everybody else, is already on their way back to Amanda and Happiness's breakfast, because the two are both here together, which is a dangerous combination. So I think we are also... Scott has also made cookies, I believe. Scotty's been very busy this morning, so we'll have to go and see how Scotty's cookies are. We'll give you an update this afternoon as to how those went. But from all the team in the Mara, and from James, myself, and Steph on this side, it's been an absolute pleasure. We hope that we'll see you this afternoon on our Sunset Safari.